Good afternoon. I'm Mike Ritchie, and I'll go ahead and spell that because I know you always want that. It's Mikerichy, and I am the Executive Director of Emergency Management, School Safety, and Security. Did everybody copy all right for me to continue on? All right. So obviously the past few weeks have been tense in schools across the nation. After the Mount Tabor shooting, especially in North Carolina, there's been a lot of concerns and a lot of worries about the safety of our students and about what we're doing to make that happen. One of the things I want to point out is that I took this job about 2 months ago, and the reason why I took this job was after long conversations with Dr. Contreras and her commitment to making this school in Guilford County, making them very safe, and putting the effort and resources towards making that happen. And so that's part of the reason why I accepted this position after leaving the Greensboro Police Department after 30 years, retiring from the Greensboro Police Department after 30 years, was because this gave another way to serve the community, and my skills, I felt, fit Dr. Contreras' vision of a safe school and a safe atmosphere for the children. I think that's a really important place to start. We're going to talk a little bit about Northeast High School yesterday, and that we recovered a weapon during, actually it was the day before yesterday, recovered a weapon at closing time. Still haven't gotten used to the school terms of bus drop-off and end of days and pickups. But at the end of the school day, in the parking lot, 2 children were stopped and had a gun. And that was due in complete part from the fact that students reported that there might be a gun at this location. Staff immediately responded with the SRO and were able to locate the students and handle the problem, quite frankly, before anybody knew what had happened, because it was that fast. And I think that's real important to know that, and it's something that we want to talk a little bit more about here, is that the students made the report. They found the right person. They didn't put out texts to their friends and rumors on social media. They found a person of authority, told them what was going on, and that person reacted exactly as they should and handled that situation before there was any opportunity for someone to get hurt. So that's another piece that has grown in our concerns over the last 3 weeks, is there have been, it's hard to even count. I don't even think we have an exact count right now because of the way things have gone, but it's hard to count the number of rumors or rumors of rumors or rumors of rumors of rumors of violence within the schools. And the reality is that, thank goodness, 99% of them have checked out to be absolutely nothing. And several of them have been kids voicing concerns and worries of their own and asking friends about it. And that's escalated into the old telephone game, if you all remember that, and becoming something that was not at all what was said. Now, we have had several threats that have been high profile in the community as well. One at High Point Central this weekend and one at Southwest the week before that. And in both of those cases, local law enforcement worked swiftly with the police, with their counterparts within the county and us. We were able to locate those and dispel those rumors prior to school starting the next day. And so with that, our message is still, it hasn't changed one bit. If you see something suspicious or odd, say something. But we've really tried to clarify that message to say it to the right person. Please contact the police departments. Please contact the schools. Please contact your administrator. And for parents, please reach out to the school administrators, not each other, because again, that rumor then flies and it makes it a whole lot harder to investigate when it's hit, and we're hearing it from 15 different people who all heard it from 15 other people who none of them are the original source. So we really need the original source reporting to come to the school administrator or to local law enforcement, whichever you deem is appropriate. And we're fine with either one because we're going to be working together either way it works, to make sure that they're investigated fully and actions are handled. So with that, that is the district message, and it's one that we really want to make sure. The last piece is that violence in our community is growing. We are all members of this community, our students, our staff, and unfortunately nationwide, gun violence in particular, but violence is on the increase. That affects everyone. One of the things that the superintendent is very conscious of is our standing as a direct line to the students and to the staff. That's right at 80,000 people that are touched by the Guilford County Schools in one way or another. And we're cognizant of our role and our need to be leaders in this. Obviously, violence is not our first imperative, but with our position in the community, we feel that it is important that we partake and that we help address this violence issue as well. And so we are willing to partner and are trying to currently partner with the local law enforcement agencies and other community groups to make sure that we help do our part to bring violence down in Guilford County. So with that, we'll open for questions. And I think Ms. Shoptaw has the mic there for that. Yes, Nelson.
Can you tell us what's the disposition of the students involved in these gun cases? Have they faced expulsion or other disciplinary means?
So talking about discipline with students is not something that we can do with FERPA. But what I will do is guide you to the Guilford County Handbook, Student Handbook, and it says very clearly what our discipline stance will be, and that's what we're going to follow every time. I will tell you that they are in juvenile detention at this time after charges from Guilford County Sheriff's Department.
And presumably they would be continuing learning in that facility as well?
Absolutely. Guilford County Schools provides the educational tools for the Juvenile Detention Center.
Thank you.
Certainly.
Comment on, is there any kind of wanding magnetometers or any of that in place in Guilford County Schools at this point? And
There are not.
any expectations of that?
At this point, no. And behind that, there's a lot of research behind different ways to show, but we've got to find the balance of keeping our schools safe and keeping them to where they're an open learning environment. And so one of the number one pieces, and this has been shown again in the same studies that talk about magnetometers, is that the safest way to have a school is to have relationships within that school with the people that are in the school. So the relationships between the staff and the children are the best way to keep the school safe. To that end, you'll notice that we've described several times about our One Card, which is our new ID piece. With that ID piece, every school now has them. And what is happening is every day there's an administrator next to the machine. It's just a computer scan, right? Like a barcode scan at a library. And so what's happening is, as a student checks in, there's a staff member right there with them. And so every day is starting with that hello of a staff member, and every interaction in that One Card is an opportunity to start building that relationship between the student and staff. And that's really what is happening in our schools everywhere, and it's been really nice to see. From my point as an outsider, having only been here for 2 months, coming in and seeing that interaction and walking in the schools, it is amazing how the day starts for these children in a positive way, in large part because of that needed interaction of just swiping the card. How are you today? There's even a little, I guess it could be considered a little hokey, but to me, or corny, but to me it's really a wonderful piece, is when it's your birthday and you scan that, the computer starts singing the birthday song to you. So it's one of those things that just creates that relationship and that we're very cognizant of, and our principals are talking to their staff about using this opportunity to check in with the students. And that has been a great advance over the last 2 months, and it's something the school system has been putting in, but Dr. Contreras really made sure that we had the resources to get it in this school year, this time, right now.
Okay. Winston-Salem Forsyth County Schools has had lots of security issues recently, and they instituted a clear bag policy. Is that something Guilford is considering or looking into?
So their clear bag policy is for athletics, okay? And so with ours, we are looking at all sorts of things along the lines of athletics and in schools. But at this point, we haven't made a decision on clear bag or no bag. Now, every individual school can make their own decisions on that, depending on the game and depending on what's going on in that evening. I know that a couple of our schools have put that in place when they were facing large rivals, right? And so that's done, and the principals have that leeway to do that.
And over the summer, there were some threatening emails sent to Dr. Contreras. Have those threats subsided? Do we have an update on that?
So at this point, we're not investigating those at all. That's been handed over to the Greensboro Police Department, so they would need to be the ones that commented on that and discuss that. Okay. Nelson, you're going to keep me busy today.
Just to clarify, the one-card system is in place at every school. We had understood that there were still maybe 100 schools that were waiting on software and that kind of thing.
So we have 126 schools, and at this point, all of our schools that are direct student schools and on our campuses, so this excludes the middle and early colleges that are on university campuses throughout the area, have the one-card system. They've all been delivered in the last 3 weeks. It's been a great 3 weeks. Up to then, we already had them in the high schools and most of the middle schools, but now we have them at all schools, and they should be fully implemented. Elementary is the only one that didn't have them fully implemented, and all of those are happening this week if haven't happened already.
They'll all be in place by the end of the week, is what you're saying.
And they're all there now. It's a matter of getting the staff and the students used to the process.
Gotcha.
But the equipment is there. Certainly.
First off, Mr. Ritchie, congratulations on your new position.
Well, thank you.
Was your hiring part of a plan to beef up security in the schools?
So on the personal end, I would love to think that it was, because everybody likes to think good things of themselves. But as far as that, that's actually a question for Dr. Contreras to answer. But I will tell you that in the conversation leading to the hiring, we had a large discussion about that. And the reality is that I've retired from one job, and I probably wouldn't have accepted this job if I didn't think that the leeway was there to really push safety and security for our children. And there wouldn't have been reason for me to take, because I've already achieved in the field that I grew up in. And so this was an opportunity, I felt, for me, on the personal note, since you asked the question, to really continue to serve Guilford County, where I've born and raised and lived all my life, and really give back and help with the kids. And Dr. Contreras made it very clear to me that she would allow for us to push, and that she wanted Guilford County schools to move forward in safety and security, and quite frankly, be a leader in the state like they try to be at every other thing that Guilford County Schools does.
And my second question, going on that, are you looking into making changes in the security plan? I mean, what is going to happen with that?
So 2 months in a school system that was 70,000 people and 126 campuses, I'm still trying to make sure I understand everything that is happening. But to that end, the number one thing, and you're going to hear me repeat, and some of y'all have already heard this, but it's a relationship. So I talk about that with students. Well, it's also my department's relationships with the principals and the principals' relationships with their staffs that are going to keep us safe. So that is the number one thing I'm building now. Almost call it a listening tour. I'm walking around and really trying to get to know what the principals need to keep their campuses safe. And they've given me a lot of ideas and a lot of things to work on.
It sounds to me like you do have quite a bit of investigating to do with all the rumors, circulating rumors
Yes.
of rumors of rumors. Can you walk us through what the process looks like when said rumor enters your office?
Certainly. So obviously I don't want to get into specifics because there's a lot of stuff that can go into there. But basically what happens is typically a school administrator or an SRO are contacted with the rumor. At that point, there's a notification system that happens, and then we bring in the proper investigators from the agencies that are at hand, right? So High Point Police Department, Guilford County Sheriff's Office, or Greensboro Police Department, and they bring in their detectives that can help really interview this. And this is if it's after school hours. And then it takes a life of its own within the police department as they track down where it came from, and then proper action is taken. the whole time we're going back and forth so that the schools can make sure they're aware and trying to keep their parents aware where appropriate. So if it happens in the school day, it's a little different in that it almost always starts with the school administrator finding out about it either through their kids or through their staff, and then they bring the SRO in. So the difference is that it just kind of reverses there. And then the kids are spoken to and interviewed, and the bottom is, we just track it to the bottom. And I know that's very generic, but that's the exact way it works.
And it seems relationship building is sort of the big theme of your remarks today.
Yes.
In addition to the scanning in process and the welcoming students to their school day, what other ways are you encouraging staff to connect with students? And what are some of the things that they're being told to listen for if there
Absolutely.
might be something going on?
So I'll tell you, me discussing it is the only new part here, in that the principals and staffs have been doing this well before I came. This isn't anything new. This isn't anything that's out there. It's just something that we want to make sure we remain focused on. So the students, their relationships work in that one-on-one basis in the classroom, but also if you visited a high school during class change, you would see that in almost every high school, every teacher steps out of their classroom. And there's a couple of reasons for doing that. One is to keep eyes on everybody going back and forth to make sure that nothing happens. But the most important part is to just continue to say hello and have those relationships with the kids and to talk to the kids and to make sure that the kids know they have trusted adults in their lives. And so that's the number one thing. Now, what you're listening for, obviously, are many of the things that I would tell you to go to websites that discuss school emotional issues, right? But you're listening for changes in behavior. Because if you have that relationship, you know what is normal for someone. You're listening, you're watching for children who made contact with you before and no longer do. So you're looking for the same pieces that really revolve around emotional distress in children. And the teachers are very well versed in that. But that's where school violence is typically related to. Does that help? Okay.
Yeah, I wanted to ask, in whatever tips or evidence that you received about the situation at the Northeast, right? Yes.
Yes.
And the car, the gun that was obtained by the police from the
Right.
student in the car. Is it your understanding, was there any evidence or intel that the gun had been brought into the car? Brought into the school? I wasn't sure if this was a situation of perhaps a student taking the gun with them all day and then being apprehended with it in their car at the end of the day, or if it's in a situation of student left it in car and came back to it at the end of the day.
So I can't get too hard into the case because that's a law enforcement issue. But what I will say is that there was an implication that someone had a gun. That person was located very early on in the investigation, and they did not have the gun. And so talking to the other children, there was one individual who was not on campus any longer and had not been on campus for a while, that if there was the possibility of a gun, it would have been with that person, and that person walked back onto campus. And so that's how that was happening. And they were seen on campus by law enforcement, and they were stopped at the car. But they were off campus with the weapon. And that's as far as I can go.
I thought I was following that for a second. They were off campus, but they walked onto campus.
And then they were stopped, and and that's where the gun was taken. So they were actually off campus with the weapon.
But they walked onto campus with the weapon
Ex-
after being off campus with
Right.
the weapon.
Yes.
And they had gotten into their car, or they were at
They
their
were
car?
they were getting into a car.
Uh-huh.
We have time for one more question.
Sorry about that. So you just mentioned, partnering with the community and police. How do you feel that these relationships will cut down on school violence? And how will you enforce or even just continue encouraging students to talk to the appropriate person instead of, say, their friends?
Okay, so those are two very separate questions right there. And let me hit the student one first. Again, those are two very separate questions. Let me hit the student question first, and that is just through reinforcement. And it again comes down to building the trust and reminding them, hey, here's what you need to do. You need to talk to us. You need to tell us. You need to tell a responsible party. And please do that as quickly as you can. And that's just a message that our schools are putting out daily, and we will continue to put out daily. And overall, I'm telling you, they're working. So it truly is working in that our administrators and staff are getting good information from the kids. Now, to the other piece, 30 years of community policing have taught me that if we don't ask the community what it is they think they need, and we make assumptions as to what will solve the problem, we'll probably never solve the problem. So, having said that, that means that we have to ask the questions of each other. What will it take for us to be safe? It's not coming from a position of knowing the answers. It's coming from asking each other what those answers are. And so having that dialogue with the community, having the conversations with the community, with the law enforcement agencies, and all of us having that together, we might very well come up with this wonderful, remedy for all of this. We might not. But if we don't come up with a remedy and we're having the conversations, we at least have the relationships to stop it here, there, and everywhere else. And that's my goal. Appreciate it. Thank you for your time, guys.